just a few announcements on our next meeting. As you know, we always have a seed share in December, and so we're trying to make that follow COVID protocols. The plan now is to have that December 13th at Reedy Creek Nature Center outside, weather permitting, in the shelter and with tables spread out. So please do save your seeds. We'll send out more details, but it's really a highlight meeting for so many of our members. And I know people are looking forward to it and should keep us busy all during the winter when we are distancing. So please think about that. And we are working on preparing a video that we can also post for you to see with some seed starting tips. So if you're new to growing native plants from seed, we've got you covered there. Details to follow on that. We hope that you will support the Native Plant Society by becoming a member. You can easily join online at ncwildflower.org. Membership is very affordable, and it's just a great way to support our work, to support the conservation and the other things that we do, and education in the community. So we are appreciative of all of our members, and thank you for your support. We also have a very active social community in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We encourage questions and answers, and people love, all of our fellow members and plant geeks like to ask questions, answer questions in that community. So we encourage you to be a part of that. So today's meeting, we are so excited about. We are getting a sneak peek into the brand new Mecklenburg County Stevens Creek Park and Nature Center. And we are very fortunate to have Kristen Haas and Alice Chambers here with us today. And they're going to talk about stormwater issues in our community, and also stormwater issues for your home gardens. And I just want to briefly introduce these wonderful educators who are with us today. Kristen Haas is the Stevens Creek Nature Center manager, and she received a degree in animal science from Rutgers University and went straight into the field of environmental education, and we're so fortunate to have her today. Her experience includes working for the Audubon and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and a small nature center in Pennsylvania, and now, and then prior to coming to Stevens Creek Nature Center, she was with McDowell Nature Center. So we can't wait to hear all she has to share with us today. Alice Chambers is Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation Department's Environmental Education Manager, and she has 25 years of experience in environmental education and interpretation, including a strong record of program and curriculum development, nature center facility management, natural resource and land management, exhibit design, and green building construction. So I think we will learn so much about the environment and ecology from both of these women, and we really look forward to hearing all you have to share. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, everybody. Like Beth said, we're going to be talking about some local water issues today. We're going to be showing you some really great images from the stream restorations that we've been doing in Mecklenburg County. Alice is going to talk all about that. And then, of course, what I think you're really here for is the take-home tips to harness the rain power in your home. So I'll actually pop outside and show you some things that we have here at the Nature Center, and then we'll come back in and talk about some more things there. So there are lots of threats to clean water. Clean water is obviously essential to humans, to plants, to animals, and there are some things that humans do intentionally or unintentionally that can impact that water quality. There are 5 listed here that we're going to talk about today, and I want everybody to just quick look over those 5 and mentally pick which one you think is the biggest contributor to decreased water quality in Mecklenburg County. I will let you know which one that is as we talk about them, but just mentally pick one now. We'll see how many of you get it right. One that I think comes to people's minds pretty quickly when you talk about water quality is dog poop, pet waste. If you care to participate, type in chat how many thousands of pounds of poop you think Mecklenburg County dogs made in 2019. Give everybody a second. Come on, someone take a guess. 60,000 says Beth. 50,000 says Justin. You're both low there. 100,000. We're zeroing in there at 90,000. There we go. It was about 75,000 pounds of dog waste in 1 year, which I don't know if that's a lot compared to other cities, but sounds like a lot to me. Issues with poop and things getting into water are things like tapeworms and other worms, parvovirus that can transmit to humans and then also to other animals as well. So I think everybody knows to scoop it, bag it, and trash it. That is a slogan that I believe originated in California. But there are actually issues with throwing your dog poop in the trash as well. I've found some really interesting information. The EPA actually recommends that you flush it, just like you would your own human waste. There could be issues with this water systems being overloaded. I don't know if you know, to treat the water, there's a lot of chemicals that go into treating the water and removing all of that waste, also energy that is used to do so. So there's kind of a debate of whether adding all of that dog waste to the system would overrun it or do more harm than good. One thing that is recommended is if you are going to throw away the dog waste is to put it in an actual plastic bag, not a compostable bag. You want things that are going into the landfill to actually be landfill as opposed to compost material because of the methane that it produces when it breaks down. You can compost dog waste. It's not recommended to do at home because most home compost systems don't get hot enough to kill the tapeworms and the parvovirus and everything. There are actually aerobic digesting companies that are popping up all over to process and sell the compost that's created from dog poop. They're actually doing quite well. It doesn't take as much energy for them to do it that way. They're able to do it more efficiently. Oops, sorry. Oh, and then is anybody's home on a septic system here? I'm curious if you can type in chat if we have anybody who's on a septic system. I know there are a lot of homes in Mint Hill that are. Oh, Justin says yes. Linda says yes. Excellent. Okay, so a bunch of people. Cool. So in Mint Hill, they're actually building a new force main and lift station. The lift station's actually down at the very bottom of our property here at Stevens Creek Nature Center. And they're building a very large force main up to accommodate us here at the preserve and then quite a lot of homes in Mint Hill. There's also a gravity main that's being added as well all throughout Mint Hill over here. And what that's going to do is a lot of people that are on septic are going to be able to get onto the sanitary system now. And so their septic water, which is processed over here at this packaged wastewater treatment facility, is not going to go into Stevens Creek anymore and Goose Creek, which is right where we are. And that's directly going to affect the water quality in the Stevens Creek in the restored stream that Alice is going to talk about pretty soon, which is one of the ways, one of the reasons why we might actually be able to reintroduce the Carolina heel splitter into the water here. Again, we're going to talk more about that. But basically just the concept of being able to take people off of a septic system and put them onto the sanitary system is really going to help increase water quality here right in our backyard. Soap and surfactants is one that everybody does. I think everybody washes their car, but maybe you don't think about as much. The soap that you put down your driveway goes directly into local waterways. There's no filter on a storm drain that filters that soap out before it gets into the water. So if you can, when you can, it is much better to wash your car at a car wash. All the water that's taken from there does go to a wastewater treatment facility and does get treated before it's put back out to there into the world. If you're rinsing tools like your lawnmower or whatnot, you can rinse those over the grass because it'll soak up into the grass or soak down into the ground and be cleaned before it gets into the water system again. It's an easy little thing you can do. Although I do love washing my car at home, I have to say, it was hard for me to switch. As the Native Plant Society, I don't think I have to tell you that herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers can be major contributors to low water quality. The great thing is that a lot of times these products aren't even really needed. There are lots of natural ways that you can control pests and weeds in your gardens. The big difference between soaps and herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers is that you never want to dump herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers down the drain. Those mix into the water and they're really hard to clean out. It's much better to recycle them properly. Mecklenburg County does recycle those things at their full service recycling centers. But more so than recycling them properly is really to just use what you need and to use less. You can get your garden soil tested, and that way you know exactly what fertilizers you need to restore the soil instead of just dumping a whole bunch of everything on there and hoping for the best. Instead of herbicides for your weeds, you can lay weed blocking mats or just a thick layer of newspaper or cardboard. I can tell you from personal experience that that cardboard really encourages lots of critters to come to your garden. I was out one day and found multiple different types of little snakes in there, all kinds of slugs and millipedes and all those things that are down there breaking down the soil and really helping to fertilize your soil naturally. If you have, sorry, I lost my place there. You can also heavily mulch to keep down your weeds, obviously. Another trick that I think people don't think about is just to plant more plants. So if there's more plants that you want there, there's no room for weeds. There are lots of natural alternatives to pesticides or things to keep pests away from your home. Things like diatomaceous earth, planting garlic, mint, marigolds. Citronella is actually a plant. You can plant citronella to keep the mosquitoes away. Catnip is good to keep away roaches. Sage and rosemary also keep away mosquitoes. There's lots of information on natural gardening out there on the internet if you wanted to know specifically which plants are good for keeping away which pests, or you can also email me and we can talk about that later. Another really fun way, and I've actually done this with programs and then brought them home myself, is to seed your garden with ladybugs to eat the aphids if they're bothering your plants. You can buy bags of ladybugs at your local garden center or on Amazon. Of course, you can buy anything on Amazon. And you can actually seed your garden with those ladybugs and they'll stay there and eat the aphids. Debris and trash are a big threat to clean water. I think everybody knows, you know, trash that enters the oceans, 14 billion pounds of trash every year. But things like yard waste and debris are also a big issue. They can clog the drains, which can cause flooding. And then all that debris in there can also harm wildlife. So things that you can do at home are to compost at home, either in a bin or in a pile, or just put it out for the Mecklenburg County to come and recycle, which is a great service that they provide. You can, if you want to do even less work, you can grass cycle or leaf cycle, which is basically just taking the bag off of your lawnmower and letting everything fall back onto the yard. It's a lot less work, I can tell you from experience. You might think that the grass clippings are going to then wash down your yard and get into the storm drains, but really the amount of material that you're leaving on top there really isn't a threat to be washing down your yard. Something else that you can do is to either clear away any clogged drains that you happen to see or report them to 311, and they'll come out and take care of those so that they don't flood your neighbors or other areas there where you're driving. In terms of actual trash, there are lots of organizations out there that are dedicated to beautifying neighborhoods and keeping trash and litter off the ground. Keep America Beautiful is one of those that do a lot of roadside cleanups, neighborhood cleanups. There's a fun kind of trend that I've heard more and more about. It's called plogging, which is picking up and jogging. So basically, while you're out exercising, and a lot of us are outside exercising more this year, you can bring a bag and maybe trash grabbers or rubber gloves and pick up trash as you go jogging or go hiking. Anytime you're out anywhere, you can do this, and it's kind of one of those leave a place better than you found it sort of things that can really make a big impact. I could do a whole thing on composting. Composting is a great another way to do that kind of trash, decrease the amount of trash that is coming into your trash cans. Alice mentioned River Sweep is another great organization, and Donna mentioned Trees for Trash. I haven't heard of that one. Donna, you'll have to tell us about that one more when we cut to the chat portion later. The last one that I want to talk about is erosion and particulates. And back at the beginning, I asked you to think of which one of these you think is the worst threat to Mecklenburg County waters, and it's this one. It's sediment in the water. So erosion is natural, but unfortunately human impacts can accelerate it, and we really do need to watch and mitigate it when we can. Construction sites are a bad one. Anytime they leave a lot of soil bare, you see things like that when we have a rain event and the sediment is just washing down and turning the river to mud. If you have empty fields by your house, or if you have even just bare spots in your lawn, all those things can and should be filled in with grass or seed or something to keep the soil where it is. This on your screen that you see these kind of hexagon or diamond shaped things, they're called geotiles, and they're used on land and they're also used in our stream. Alice is going to talk about the stream restoration and how they're used to hold on to the sediment at the bottom of the stream for the benefit of freshwater mussels. Another thing that I remember learning about in college are desire paths. So this picture down here on your bottom left shows the designed pathway and then how people actually use it and how they've eroded away these paths that go straight to the parking lot as opposed to taking the nice sort of winding path that the architect designed. So those are desire paths. Anytime you can stay on a durable surface that is already there for you, even if it takes you a little bit longer to walk around, that's preferable to prevent extra erosion from happening. Cool, I see a lot of stuff happening in chat. That's great. Thank you for Kareen for monitoring that. If you have questions about threats to clean water, we can pause for a moment and take those now. You can either unmute yourself or you can type them in chat. I don't know if they're going to unmute themselves. All right, you can't see. Yes, Justin raised his hand. Yes, Justin, can you unmute yourself?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. That was very informative. I didn't know I was what did you call it? The jogging, picking up, flogging?
Flogging, yes.
I didn't know I was one of those, but yeah, apparently I've been doing that for a while, so that's kind of cool to know. And I was surprised to hear about the erosion being the biggest one. I thought for sure it would have been pesticides, But you mentioned something about septic tanks, and I was one of the people that mentioned I do have a septic tank. I was kind of wondering, I'm understanding that, you know, the material seeps back into the land and probably isn't great for, you know, water, but I was just kind of curious as to how bad that was, or if there was anything I could do. Because I mean, I just bought this house. I'm not planning on changing the septic tank anytime soon, but or maybe go further on how you meant that plugging into the, I guess, the water lines, how that process is going for now. But yeah, it's
Sure, yeah. From my understanding, the septic water is cleaned by those, the package plants and other things. I don't know a ton about septic, but at least in our area here, the neighborhood that's right behind Stevens Creek does have that package plant there, and it does clean it out, and it is considered clean enough to put into the stream. So it's not just dumping raw waste or whatnot into the stream there. It is cleaned, it is processed in a way. It's not 100% as clean as maybe stuff that's coming from a larger wastewater treatment facility. So it's not horribly polluting the water, but it could be better, I guess, if it was hooked up to that more sanitary closed system. So, and Alice may have more information.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that.
Yes.
Septic systems, for the most part, your liquid waste goes out through those perforated pipes that are buried 2, 3, 4, 5 feet deep into your yard, depending upon the age of your system. And that pretty much relies on the planet to clean your liquid waste for you. And it then seeps into groundwater and into aquifers and whatnot. The solid waste is what is really collected in your tank, in your septic tank. For the most part, everything liquid goes out through your lawn. Everything solid then gets pumped out by the truck that comes by. However, often it is that you've got that set up to come pump. So it kind of depends, but yeah, most of that liquid waste is taken care of by the planet. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you know, if you've got a lot of people using it, it's a bigger problem than if you've only got 1 or 2 people in the household that's using it.
no, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of like looking forward to the idea of having my house or my yard composted by the waste. Like that was kind of the point of getting it. So, but yeah, it's nice to know that it's not terribly detrimental to the water system. Thank you.
Let's see, Pamela wants to know who is it best to notify if we see erosion on a construction site. You can call 311 and that. That's that main number for Mecklenburg County. If you're not in Mecklenburg County, then I'm not sure.
I think each county has their own reporting system, and it's probably something very similar to a 311 system. I will have to look that up and see what I can't find for some other places out and about. But yeah, it's normally that 311 kind of system that you have through your county government for the most part.
We are going to talk more about how to prevent erosion in your own yard later when we get down into the home tips and tricks. So thank you everybody who's asking that in chat. How do the construction barriers how do the barriers at construction sites work? They don't look like they do much, says Liz. They're, especially if like the picture you see on your screen, that's a lot of area to try to control there. We actually just had some seeding done here at the Nature Center, and it's already picking up. Just after a couple days, it's already starting to grow. So they have those barriers along the side that are just meant to basically be like a sandbag and direct water to where they want it to be. If they add something like those geotiles, they're going to fill the tiles with small gravel that will allow the water to seep through instead of running over. I'm sure you've heard about permeable versus non-permeable surfaces. So those geotiles add more permeable surfaces where the water can soak through, as opposed to a more non-permeable surface like that hard clay where the water's just going to wash over it. But you're right, it's not, it's what they're required to do. It's not certainly perfect. When they finish doing that construction, they're going to want to seed it with something that's fast growing, that has lots of roots to help hold on to that soil. And then on stream banks, you want to seed with native plants that are good for living near water, which we're also going to talk about when we talk about rain gardens later.
And as far as the construction fencing, that silt fence is required by law for any construction site. Every state has a different way that they look at that construction fencing or that silt fencing. Sometimes it's required to be up for a year after the construction is done, just to make sure that all of the plant matter that had been planted back onto the construction site has grown in, is now doing its job for erosion control. Mm-hmm. And the construction, the general contractor is required to make sure that the silt fencing is maintained. If you see that the silt fence is not being maintained, again, you can call 311 and let the folks know there that there is some erosion fencing or some silt fencing at XYZ construction site that doesn't seem to be being maintained. And that general contractor has to get back out there and make sure that it is maintained. Sometimes on slopes, depending upon the grade of the slope, you might see a coir roll kind of down into the ditches or the gullies a little bit to help stop some of the particulates and some of the erosion. So it all kind of depends on the construction site. And sometimes they're required to have 2 levels of silt fence, one closest to the construction and one 3 to 5 feet behind it. So you've got 2 fences that are 311 that are there to help stop any erosion that may be happening on that construction site.
Excellent. Well, we're going to move on to the stream restoration initiative in Mecklenburg County. We can always come back to more questions later, though. So thank you, everybody, for all that. Oh, yeah. There you go. Go for it, Alice.
Yes. We have 10,000 linear feet at Stevens Creek that were repaired. And this is actually a Reedy Creek set of pictures. As you can see on the left there, that before picture, there was a lot of soil washing away every time we had any kind of rain event. And that this particular channel is one where a school bus could have driven through the creek bed. And if you were standing any distance back from the banks there, you could not see the stream, or you couldn't see the school bus driving through the creek bed. That's how bad some of that erosion was. It was 10 to 11 feet deep in places. Stevens Creek wasn't quite that bad, but Reedy Creek and Stevens Creek both have had restoration projects done on them in the last, I think Reedy finished 2 years ago and Stevens just finished. So that's been a lot of work in progress in the county and our nature preserves to work on these stream restoration projects. It does require some trees to be removed, but those trees are going to grow back in, and in the next 10 to 20 years, which sounds like a long period of time, you won't even know that those streams had looked like the one on the left. All you'll know is what the hit looks like on the right. So in the straight channels, water is still going to flow from side to side. If you can see on the before picture, you can see a path where that water is moving and some sediment kind of off there on the left. So even in a straight channel, water is going to meander. And that's what it wants to do. That's the most natural course for water to flow. And so turns and bends help slow that water down, but still need to be hardened to kind of avoid erosion in that new channel. So go on to the next slide. If you take a look at these images, these are some of the things that are some of the flood threats to the homes on Stevens Creek. Reedy Creek had a few, but mainly Stevens Creek was a flood issue for some of the homes that are right up next to it. That tree that's right next to the picnic table on the left, that is the same one that you see in the after picture. And you can see this particular section of creek was moved about 30 feet inland, if you will, away from homes. to avoid some of that flood risk. Erosion, again, was taking place quite a bit there, but we moved this stream channel to make sure that we had enough room away from those houses, so when water did flow through here and overflow the banks, which is how it was designed to overflow the banks, so that that water would stay in a certain place and not get back up into where the homes were. So flooding was definitely a threat here at Stevens, and erosion was the bigger problem at Reedy Creek. So one of the major problems is velocity. How fast is that water flowing through the creek? Going back to the meanders again, whoop, too far, there you go. Going back to the meanders, you can see on the top section of that map, if you've got a meander, the dark blue section is where the fastest flowing water is going to go. You want to make sure you harden the creek, they're the creek banks rather, in that yellow area where it's the most susceptible to erosion. And on the dark brown sections, that's where the water's moving the slowest. That's where you're going to get some deposition of the sediment and some of the particulates that are flowing through there and just kind of dropping off. I'll get to that in just a second, Carrie. She's asking, what are they hardened with? I'll get there. So what will, another one of the problems is oxygenation. So we needed to fix velocity, water's moving too fast, and we need to fix oxygenation. If the water's moving really slow in certain places, the dissolved oxygen, which is what all the critters need in the water, goes down dramatically. The warmer the water, the slower the water, the lower the oxygen. So since we can't put in mechanical pumps like this, we had to use different kinds of things to add oxygen back into the water. So we use these in-stream structures. On the left, that arrow is pointing toward the far left. That's pointing towards something called a rock toe. Those rocks that are laid on the side of the creek there are going to harden that creek bank. So as the water comes around the corner a little bit, it's going to hit that rock toe and then continue, kind of bounce off of it and continue on. That also underneath it, if there's a little bit of space either in between the rocks or under those rocks, the larger rocks, it'll create habitat for some macroinvertebrates or some fish to survive underneath there. You'll also see in that picture, there are some rocks in the creek bed. That's also a good way for the water to slow down. And as it falls over those rocks, it'll add some water to the, or add some oxygen rather, to the water. The center picture is called a wood toe. And a lot of the trees that were removed on the site were then used to create these wood structures on the edges of the creek banks to help avoid erosion. So you've got rock toes and wood toes, both doing the same job, but doing it in a slightly different manner. That wood toe is going to collect sediment. It's also going to then create a lot of really good habitat. A lot of macroinvertebrates feed on that sediment. They feed on the little tiny plants and little tiny animals that might be living in there. You can see some moss kind of starting to grow on the bottoms of those trees there. Those are all going to be really great things for habitat while that water's getting slowed down. Tend to use rock toes in places where the water's moving more quickly than a wood toe, but they still serve the same purpose, to stop erosion and to increase habitat. The far right picture, you'll see a rock vein kind of up toward the front that is slowing the water down just by creating a little barrier. How many of us, when we were kids, would create little rock dams in the creek when we'd go play there? That's what this is. It's a structure that we purposely put there to slow the water down a little bit. On the leeward side, on the downstream side, as that water flows over the rock toe, it's going to scour out a small plunge pool that is also a great place for habitat for fish. A little farther upstream there, you're going to see some riffles. Those riffles are just rocks in the creek that the water runs over, bubbles over, and adds oxygen to that stream. It slows the water down a little bit, so it helps with velocity, but the riffles are really, their main purpose is to create oxygenation in that creek, in the water. Also great places to flip over rocks, habitat for macroinvertebrates and things. All right, let's see. Next slide. Kristen, you want me to answer questions as they're coming?
Sure.
All right. Liz wants to know how much maintenance do we expect the restoration projects to need? Hopefully not a whole lot. They've already been in to move some logs around. We had a significant rain event about 5 months ago at this point, that moved some tree stumps. Kristen, what do you think? They were like 2 feet across. I mean, these were big tree stumps that got pushed with the water from wherever they were in the neighborhood downstream to us. And it looked like we had placed these logs perfectly on the creek bank for benches for people to sit on. They came down of their own accord, and they're huge cross sections of trees. We've had to move some of those out of the way. We've also had to replant some things that have gotten washed away. Some of the willow wides that have been just jammed into the side of the soil, because willows will grow anywhere. But for the most part, all the rock has held. We've just had to replace a little bit of the wood toe and a little bit of the planting. But for the most part, we shouldn't really have to do a whole lot of maintenance on these. It'll be monitored for the next 5 years. And these are actually stormwater projects. Stormwater services with the county, these are their projects on our property. So it's a really great partnership. They are the ones that have the budget to help fix these things if they need to get fixed. We just get to enjoy all the good stuff that goes with them. So we're helping with the monitoring, and it's not just the structural monitoring, but it's all the creatures that are coming back in that we're also monitoring. What's the fish species count? How many macroinvertebrates are we going to be seeing? How well are the plants going to be growing back in that are supposed to be there? So those are the things that they're going to be looking at, and we're looking at the same time. So these projects are always long-term, like any restoration project is. It's not like you build the playground and poof, you're done, ready to go. We have to build and maintain and monitor these things over a long period of time. Does that answer your question, Liz?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep, and that also gets to Carrie's point about erosion continuing to occur. But yes, that is what it is. It is built to help fix. Is it an issue in our creeks when visitors build rock towers, cairns, or their own dams within them? It is to a point on a couple of different levels. One, you're moving the rocks around. If you don't put them back, that rock was somebody's roof. So a lot of critters are living underneath those rocks. When you pick them up and move them, you've now displaced the critter that was living under it and using it for shelter. So it is a problem, especially when people take the rocks out of the creek bed and build a cairn with them. Whatever was living underneath that rock is now out exposed to the air where they're not used to being, so they don't tend to make it. So it is a little bit of time, or a little bit of a problem for when people build their own dams within them. If they stay within the creek, it's not as bad. It's still not great, but if they stay within the creek, it's a little bit of a better problem, I guess, than having people pick them up and move them out.
And here in the Nature Center, that is a lot of our job, is to educate people about that kind of stuff and to teach them how to properly be in the stream and do a stream walk if they want to, without damaging the plants or the animals there. So we talk about that heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, Alice, why don't you keep going with structures?
These two structures here, you see the bridge in the background on the left, and that structure right in the front there is a log vein. That is basically a log that is in between those sets of rocks going across the creek, and it's creating a little waterfall, creating a little place for water to slow down, and a place for water to oxygenate the rest of the creek as it flows over that. There'll be a plunge pool on the downstream side of that, there'll also tend to be a deeper section upstream, so that you know, the water kind of dams up a little bit and then falls over that log vein. So that is helping with two different things again: velocity and oxygenation. On the right is what's called a J hook, and you'll see that the whole entire structure kind of looks like a big J. The curvy part of the J is made of rock, and I believe this particular one is a log vein and rock J hook. Some are made of all rock, some are made of logs and rocks. Again, oxygenation and velocity, but this also then directs the water to a certain place in the creek where we want it to be going. It's not just free flowing over it, but some of that J hook kind of sticks out into the creek and helps direct water over the curvy part, if you will, of the J. I think those are all of my structures. The difference between detention and retention. So quantity and longevity are important factors when you're looking at water quality. Like the septic system that we were talking about earlier, water needs a place to sit and safely dissipate. So when you have water sitting in a certain place in a built pond or a natural pond or a lake that is still water, it's going to be retained. So if that water is always there, it is a retention basin of some sort. If the water flows in, sits for a little while, and flows back out, or gets absorbed into the soil, then it is detention. You're just detaining the water for a short amount of time. So we've got some spaces there that are just detention spaces. Coming up, you'll see a picture in a few slides here where we have a flooding incident, and it was built that way in that floodplain to detain the water and let it sit and settle and soak back into the soil, which will help it recharge our groundwater and recharge the aquifers that are underground. If anybody's on a well, you're getting your water from an aquifer, most likely. So those detention spaces are going to help refill, and the retention spaces, to some extent, will help refill those aquifers. Mountain Island Lake is like Lake Wylie and Lake Norman, and all the lakes that were created up the Catawba are made by people, and they were built to retain water. Duke owns those dams, so they have the opportunity to decide how high or how low they want those lakes to be. Right before a forecasted large rain event, like perhaps coming up this week, Duke tends to let water flow, and you'll see the lake levels drop at Wylie and Norman and Mountain Island. Mountain Island being the smallest of those three, you see it more dramatically when Duke drops the water level, but they do it in preparation for a large rain event. They didn't drop it quite enough for this particular rain event on your screen. You'll see a sign out beyond the tree. That's the normal shoreline for Mountain Island Lake. So we got a lot of water at Latta a couple years ago. They had drained the water out, and then it all came back in. But if they had not drained any water out at all, it would have been so much worse. I believe this is the flood event where some of the houses along the Catawba River had flooded because there was just so much water that came through. It may have been the hurricanes a year or so ago. So is it better to have a shallow stream that floods easily or a deeper, fast-moving stream? It really depends on where you're at. How much land is available? What's going to get impacted? Does your house flood a lot? Are we trying to detain or retain or convey water through? It all depends on the situation and where you are. So here's some of that detention information. You see the house back there on the left. This is what Reedy Creek looks like right before, at the very, very beginning of a rain event. And if you look, you'll see the time stamp there. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 hours later, you see what after looks like. So this is a place where we purposefully designed this creek to overflow its banks. That house did not get any water in its basement. It's not in the floodplain, but if all of this water would have been not resting in Reedy Creek's floodplain, it would have been much, much closer to that house, and it may have been impacted. So we designed this place, this part of Reedy Creek, to have a space for that water to dissipate within the floodplain. Stevens Creek during a water or a rain event, you can see also does the same thing. This is only a 2-hour difference. 3 hours later, you'll see the difference between Stevens Creek right before a rain event and then Stevens Creek during that rain event. This whole entire space was full of water because we designed it that way. We wanted to make sure that water had a place to sit and dissipate, so that the homes along the way were not impacted. Something else that is another piece of stormwater and stream restoration design is conveyance. So in other places, it's important just to get that water downstream as quickly as possible, move it through the area so that it is not going to impact any of the homes or anything along the way. So in other places, you know, it's about slowing it down. And in other places, it's about go ahead and let it sit. And in other places, it's about just get it moving, get it down the way. So during a rain event on the left, you can see how full the creek is. The next day, all that water was gone. So we were able to convey that water and get it out of the way in less than 24 hours. And the water was moving. This is one of those where if you drop a leaf on one side of the bridge, you might not make it to the other side of the bridge to watch that leaf go underneath. This water was flying. And I don't know what the calculation would be for how many gallons per minute were flowing through that creek, but Stevens Creek definitely did a much better job to get that water moving than what it had been in the past. So one quick, Donna wants to know, with heavy rain and flooding, will these structures be stable? Yes, as a matter of fact, they are. Like I said, we had a couple where the rocks moved a little bit, and we've repaired those. But and it's interesting, the power of water, because like I had said, that those logs that moved down, they were huge. And water is a powerful force, but these restoration projects are all built to make sure that those rocks are in place. The logs are in place. They are usually installed with rebar through them. One of my Labradors is wanting me to pet him. The rebar is put through the logs and things to make sure that it stays in place. There's also a lot of structure that you don't see that's been covered up with soil to make sure that all of the things that are in the water stay in place. So it's not like we take just a bunch of rocks and stick them on the edge. There's a lot of structure that's hidden that makes sure that the things that are in the creek are supported and aren't going to move. Anyone else with any more questions about the stormwater and the stream bank restoration? All right, looks like we're moving on to rain barrels, and Kristen's gonna head outside, I believe, to show you some stuff that's going on with the.
We're outside here at Stevens Creek Nature Preserve, and we have a water feature right here at the entrance to our nature center. And we also have one over here that is running. And one of the ways that we're going to keep these water features fed is through this rain barrel that's right here. You can give us a thumbs up in chat or a yes if you have rain barrels at your home. They're really easy ways to use some water more smart. Wow, that was not the word that I meant to say. Smartly in your home. This barrel I created here, and I'm already having some issues with it. If you kind of take a look at it, just remember what it looks like, and we're going to talk about ways to maybe improve this. Maybe you can help me figure it out once we talk a little bit more about them here. My goal was to use this rain barrel to help feed this water feature over there. So we have to cross the path, and that's where I'm having my issues. I don't know if you can see, but this one in particular is fed by a rain chain that we have here at Stevens Creek instead of downspouts. On some of the spots we have rain chains just because they look pretty and they sound pretty, and they do the same thing. So I'm going to pop back inside real quick. Please pardon the pause, and we'll continue with rain barrels.
There we go. Cool. Yes, rain barrels. Okay, cool. Excellent. I have 2. I have 6 collecting rainwater. Love my barrels. Got them from Stormwater. Do we have any problems with mosquito larvae? Yes, we will talk about that. That's great. So rain barrels are purposeful, practical, and pretty. They can be pretty. Mine are very much not at home, but they can be pretty. So you can put them right underneath your downspout to collect quite a bit of water. They will overflow in any sort of even moderate sized rain event, even if they were completely empty. They collect water very, very quickly off of a roof. If you have the desire, need, and space for more water, you can hook a series up, like this picture down here. They have 3 that are connected. And for maximum convenience, they have these standalone features that have a big funnel that you can place them anywhere. They don't have to be connected to a downspout. I have 2 at my house, and I never have to use the hose to water any of my gardens. So they really do hold quite a lot of water, and can really help decrease your water bill. If you put if you set it to drip and you put a little plate of rocks or whatnot underneath the outflow there, you can have a great spot for bees and squirrels and birds to come. It's like a built-in bird bath. Sometimes you can purchase ones that even have a water feature built into them, and they use the water in the rain barrel and then percolate it up like a water feature for birds or a bird bath. Rain barrels are really easy to DIY, and they're really not that expensive. You can also purchase them. They're not that expensive to purchase, and they have some that are very pretty looking. No matter what design you go with or how many or where, there are a couple things that you really want in your rain barrels. A removable lid is really helpful to periodically clean out your barrel if it gets scummy on the inside, or if you do get mosquitoes. Mosquito dunks, they're kind of green disc looking things that you can purchase from like a hardware store. They are fine to put in there. They'll help kill off the mosquito larvae, and they're not going to harm your plants. You can also put some mesh screening over the top where your intake is, like on the picture on the left here, to help keep the mosquitoes out, but it does have to be pretty fine mesh. I find that mine tend to get gummed up with all the leaves, so I prefer to leave mine open and just put the mosquito dunks in, but that's a personal preference. You also need a way to get the water out. So like in this picture in the middle, there's a spigot there that is connected to all of the barrels where the water can come out there. You can hook a hose up to it. I had intended to hook a soaker hose up to mine and do like a slow release, but I didn't have enough water pressure, which we'll get to in just a second. So if you have it up high, you can just stick your watering can right underneath, or if you want to hook a hose up to it, you just need one that has the little screw on so that you can screw the hose on. Another good feature to have on your water barrel is this overflow hose. So have some sort of hole where it can overflow, and then it can either just be a plain hole and the water will go wherever it is directing it to. Make sure you direct it away from your house. or a preferable method is to hook some sort of PVC pipe or hose up to it, and then you can direct it where you want it to go. Maybe you want it to go into your water, into a rain garden that you have, or maybe you want it to go onto a hardened surface so that it can flow down, or maybe you want it to go straight into your lawn. Depends on where they are placed. And if you want to increase your water pressure, especially if you're using a soaker hose or like mine outside that I just showed you, I wanted to get over to that other water feature. I didn't have enough water pressure because I did not raise mine up. So if you want to build a wooden structure or use concrete cinder blocks, most people just use cinder blocks. Just make sure however you raise it up is very sturdy, because those water barrels get very, very heavy when they're full of water and you don't want them tipping over. There you go. Speaking of rain gardens, I think this is something that a lot of people are interested in, but maybe a little bit daunted by the idea of putting a rain garden in, because it sounds like it has to be so specific or it has to be maintained. But really, rain gardens can be very simple, and they can turn big, puddly, mushy areas of your yard into something really beautiful, really a showcase spot. If you plant them with the proper plants and you get the proper amount of rain, they're really very low maintenance because you put the proper plants in the proper spot. So some basics of a rain garden. I am by no means a rain garden expert. I am happy to talk more about this and learn more about it myself with you. But some basics of a rain garden: you don't want it right next to your house, probably at least 10 feet away, because it is going to get wet and you don't want it to overflow and get into your home. 100 square feet is kind of the minimum. You can't really go too big with a rain garden, but you can go too small. You want to start by testing your soil drainage. If your soil already drains within a day after a large rain event, you may not need to do anything to the soil to be ready to make that spot a rain garden. If your soil doesn't drain within a day, you can dig out the area that you want to be the rain garden to about 4 to 8 inches deep and add back in a better mixture of draining soil. They recommended 50 to 60% sandy soil, 20 to 30% compost, and 20 to 30% topsoil. And you can buy pre-purchased mix or you can make them yourself. For additional drainage, you can start with a layer of gravel under that. And you can also add a outflow pipe, perforated pipe. That's getting a little bit more complicated and may involve some heavy machinery or some really strong people digging with shovels. You want the bottom to be unlined, obviously, because you want the water to be able to flow through, but you do want to structure the soil around it so that it has a berm, a little hill, to hold the water in during the rain events and let it do what it needs to do to let it percolate down through. You can also direct your gutters and your downspouts into your rain garden to help keep it wet more often. When you plant your plants, once you've planted them, you want to mulch the top. Because it is a wet area, it's gonna break down much more quickly. So you're probably just gonna have to go ahead and mulch it every year. Just know that you're gonna have to do that. More plants equals more roots equals better drainage. So you want to plant up the sides and the bottom part of your rain garden. On the sides, you want to put plants that are good in a mixture of dry and wet conditions. And on the bottom, you want to put the more water-loving plants. I do have an extensive list of plants that we used in our stream restoration. And it talks about where they were planted, what type of plant they are, how they were planted, whether they were a bare root, a live stake, or a seed. The resolution on this is not great. So if anybody would like this list, I would happily send it out to them. But if you look at things that are on the stream bank, there are things like buttonbush and willow and dogwood, so some of your larger trees. Those can go in a rain garden as well. You just make sure that you have enough space in your yard for them because they do get to be bigger trees. In the wettest part of your rain garden, there are other things that you can plant like buttonbush and arrowwood and pawpaw that are shorter understory trees. And then there are lots of flowers. So switchgrass, deer tongue, broom sedge, rose mallow, all those things are flowering plants that are also going to attract your pollinators, which I'm sure you guys love as well. More plants. All right, so that's my bit. Let's see, let's go over to chat. Lots of chat about rain barrels. You guys are really excited about rain barrels. That's awesome. Yes, food grade barrels are wonderful. Pickle tubs. I will make the plant list available. Second list, okay. Cool, okay. Other questions about anything that we have talked about? And we can certainly, I know we're already running a little bit long, so if you don't want to stay, I do think Beth has something else to talk about after, so we'll just take one or two more questions and then we'll turn it back over to Beth. If there are any more questions. Okay. All right, well, Beth, what else did you want to share with everybody? And then
so thank you both and for your whole team for everything that you have shared with us today. And it's fascinating and gives us all some ideas for home with the wet and rainy year that we've had this year. So thank you very much. One thing, Kristen and Alice were gracious enough to invite us for a tour of both the Nature Center and looking at some of the work that's been done before the Nature Center opens. And I think, Kristen, you mentioned it's probably not going to open until January for officially to the public.
at least, yes, just because of COVID.
So, right. So we do appreciate that. And Carol will put her email address, or I will in just a second, in the chat to sign up. We have to limit that to 24 people. It's next Sunday at 2 o'clock. And I think Corrine is going to guide us on that. But from the people today, we'll put that email address to sign up. And as I said, to be COVID compliant, we will limit that to 24, since part of it will take place inside to look at some of the things. So we will do that. And then the other thing I mentioned to Corrine, we will, if she sends me a copy of the plant list, I have all of your email addresses because you registered. And so I can email that out to everybody on the registration list so that we can see some plants that are widely adaptable to stormwater and wet and rainy conditions, and also plants that are stabilizing to stream banks. So a lot of us have those kinds of challenges to different degrees. So that would be great. And at this point, I think we're about ready to wind up, but we can check back in to the chat and see if there are any other questions. So we'll hang around for a few minutes to see if people have further questions for Alice and Kristen. But thank you so much for sharing the story behind all of the development and the what's going on at Stevens Creek, and we really can't wait to come over there and visit you.
Let's see. Madeline wanted to ask about pamphlets or books on swales, on like rain gardens, I guess. There's lots of information out there. You can just do a really easy Google search. I don't have anything. Personally, if you go to wipeoutwaste.org, I believe it's Mecklenburg County's recycling and composting system. I know they have information on composting, like warm composting and home composting there. I would imagine that Stormwater Services probably has information on rain gardens. I can certainly check into that for you and send it to Beth to send along. Justin has his hand up. Go for it, Justin.
Y'all hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Do you see my face? Or can I show my video? Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to comment on the rain garden. I don't really have a rain garden per se, but because the whole idea was kind of daunting. So really what I've done is I had an area that was, getting a lot more water than normal, and I just kind of dug out a ravine, and the water just channels right through there, and it's just made a very luscious area for, doesn't look great right now, but during the summer, it's looked great. No gravel or anything. I just dug it out. And over time, I added this other layer. There's an area for my bees to get water. And this is pollinated, or they have plenty of food over here. But yeah, it doesn't have to be this, terrific idea of levels of rock and sand and all this stuff. It can literally just be this, as long as you've got enough water flow. And the water channels here are great. Like, all this has plenty of water and food and nutrients. So yeah, if you're thinking about doing this, I highly recommend, just starting with what you've got in your yard and seeing where that goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you probably just have good enough drainage already. And so that's awesome. And that you have honeybees too. Man, how neat is that? Might have to come to your and learn about honeybees.
Yeah, I could do a presentation on that, believe me.
We're going to stay here just for another couple minutes because people seem to be linking things and talking amongst themselves, which is awesome. Beth, did you get a count of how many folks we had today?
Yes, we had 48 join us today, which was fabulous. And we are grateful to everyone who took a few hours or an hour out of a very beautiful afternoon.
How do you address mosquito issues in your wet area rain gardens? Justin, you want to answer how you deal with mosquitoes?
It's like what you said earlier. It's the dunks. You can get them anywhere, and I think it's like a bacteria that kills the larva, so it's not harmful to anything other than the specific larva. So my bees aren't hurt by them. Other larva insects aren't hurt by them. So they've been really effective. It's just you've kind of constantly got to be putting them in there because they'll wash away, or I don't know. I've noticed that they don't last as long as they are advertised. So if you start seeing more mosquitoes around, it might be time for another dunk, but they're very inexpensive. So, and I don't see any detriment to using them. So I don't see that as a problem. They've been very good.
If you don't mind having the mosquitoes there, but just are trying to keep them away from your skin, you can do that citronella. You can plant the citronella plants around, or any of those other natural methods that we had talked about as well. And a bat box. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, or just have the bats nest in your attic like they are in mine. Yeah. This is great. Lots of really good questions in chat. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in this. It makes these Zoom meetings so much more fun when people actually participate.
All right. Well, I think we'll kind of wind up now, and we will once you send me the list of plants that the contractors recommended or that you selected for the stream restoration project at Stevens Creek, we'll share that, and you know, we'll all go out and play in our streams. So, but we'll know more about them when we do. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody who joined us for today. And so we're gonna go ahead and end our meeting now. So bye, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks.